All right, welcome everyone to today's NAEA career panel. Please note that this Zoom webinar is being recorded. So if you know someone who would be interested in this, you can send them the YouTube after this is over. Before we begin, I just want to go over a few quick housekeeping items. To ask questions of our speakers, and you can do so throughout this webinar, please use the Q&A feature found on your Zoom. You can also just post them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that throughout. If you have any technical issues or questions about NAEA or any of our partnerships or scholarships, I'll be monitoring the chat throughout, so please use that feature. And just remember when making a comment to the whole webinar to make sure you choose all panelists and attendees. That way the other attendees can see your questions as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator for today. Catherine A. Bostock-Hootie, EA, is the outgoing NAEA Education Foundation Chair. She started CVH Business Services, Inc. in 1998 after working for a manufacturing company for nearly 2 decades. She acquired a wide range of experiences in the finance department, starting as a financial analyst and through the years being promoted to plant controller. When Catherine started CVH Business Services in 1998, her focus was on individual and business income tax returns and bookkeeping for small businesses. She became an EA in 2005 and an NTPI Fellow in 2012, and has served on the NAEA Education and Membership Committees. So Catherine, I'm going to pass it off to you and the rest of the panelists.
Thank you so much, Erin. As Erin stated, I became an enrolled agent in 2005, and I started my own business in 1998, which we'll talk about a bit more later. All of us on the panel have different experiences, and I'm going to start off with Lori Carpenter to tell you what her background is and what her experiences are and how she became an enrolled agent. Lori?
Thanks, Catherine. So I became an enrolled agent. I was just looking at this, I'm 3 days away from my 10-year anniversary of being an enrolled agent. So it's kind of an exciting moment. But I have been a music teacher, mom of 5, and we were doing our debt snowball with the Dave Ramsey financial piece, and my family, we decided to take on a few extra side jobs in 2011. And so that was for my husband at the time and I doing some taxes as an intern. And so at that point, I guess that's where I started, was the intern. And after that tax season, the owner of the firm said, "Hey, I signed you up with some materials so you can learn about taxes and become an enrolled agent." Well, I don't even think I knew what I was saying okay to at the time, but it was such a fantastic move. And a little over a year later, I became an enrolled agent. And I think I've been on almost every committee that NAEA has. I think the ethics is one, and governance, bylaws, I've not been on, but I think most of the others I've served on. I just finished up my 2nd term as a board member for NAEA. I just also finished up my term as the president of Indiana Society of Enrolled Agents. And so it's exciting to be as the past president now and watch the society continue to thrive and make great moves forward and not be on the front line of that. So to back up, 2011, I started as an intern. 2012, I started managing one of our offices. And as of this year, I have purchased the firm that I started as an intern with. So it's been a really exciting career for me and a journey that's still on its way.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lori. Jay? You've been, I think I heard you say earlier that you became an enrolled agent in 2014. How did you learn about the enrolled agent credential, and what made you decide to become an enrolled agent?
Yeah, I actually had two reasons why I did it. When I was in college, I actually volunteered at a program called VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. So it was helping like the community doing free taxes for people that can't afford tax prep. And then also, I was at a big four accounting firm, and they wanted you to be credentialed to be a manager. So it was either be an EA or be a CPA or become an attorney. And I decided, hey, the EA is a pretty cool path because I've seen EAs and worked with EAs in history. So I went down that path.
So you learned about the EA credential based on the firm that you were working with.
Vita, it was a volunteer
Vita,
organization.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Amber is an EA candidate. She is currently in her senior year at Kansas State University. Amber, how did you learn about the EA credential?
Yes, so I had the opportunity to join this small business consulting firm. We do a lot of things other than taxes, but taxes are one of the things that we do tend to focus on during tax season, and then anything else that carries throughout the rest of the year. And so I see the other two preparers that I work alongside so busy on tax returns. And so really it was just kind of nature, I guess, to look at a couple different options as far as a tax professional. And I will say I'm tired of school. And so that's why I tend to lean more towards the EA side. I feel like just the combination of my experience and education, EA seemed to be the right route for me. So I guess you could say more of my colleagues that led me towards the EA direction.
Very good. And have you taken part 1 of the EA exam?
Yes, so I've taken part 1 and 2. I've taken them in order so far. I have part 3 scheduled here in the next month. So I'm looking forward to
excellent.
that.
So you will be an EA in the next month. As I understand, part 2, everybody recommends that you take that last because that is the hardest part.
Oh, interesting.
Did you find part 2 to be difficult?
I found part 1 to be more difficult than 2, just because I wasn't sure what to expect. And then once I kind of got through part 1 and passed it, took some of my worries and stress away, I guess, and I knew more of what I needed to focus on and where the direction the tests were going. So I did find 2 to be a little bit easier personally than 1.
Well, just as a question for Lori and Jay, because I know Amber is really new, so she has to be taking Prometrics. But did both of you take Prometrics or?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I think when I had taken it, actually, when you take the test and they tell you the result on the spot, I believe now they don't tell you on the spot anymore.
They do.
Oh, they do. They still do.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's actually really was nerve-wracking to me the first time. There's like a 5-question survey on Prometric before they tell you your results.
Well, I'm going to tell you, back when I took the exam, which was 2004, it was a 2-day 4-part exam. You actually had to show up at an IRS office. There was no computerized testing program. And you didn't get your grades until the spring. You had no idea if you passed or not. And it literally took them that long to grade all the tests in the United States. And it was nerve-wracking as to whether or not I'd actually passed or not. But it was all pencil and paper, and it was a very different time back in 2005. So so I do see that we have one of our attendees wanting to know about core opportunities for an enrolled agent, and get only in CPA firms, and they mean jobs. So I'm going to start off with this, and then I'm going to go roundtable, because becoming an enrolled agent opens up a lot of opportunities for you. I started my own business, and I have been working at my own business, and I became an enrolled agent as part of that to improve my skills and become credentialed, a credentialed preparer. So that was my opportunity. I'm going to pass it over to Lori, because Lori, in her intro, joined a firm.
Yeah, so I was part of a firm that was already up and running, and our owner had a really strong appreciation of the enrolled agent profession. And so he really was the one who guided a lot of us in our firm and said, we don't have any CPAs in our firm at this point, but he wanted and encouraged everybody to become enrolled agents who's going to be doing tax preparation. And as a side to that, he's also encouraged other tax preparers in our whole community to become enrolled agents. And we're seeing most of our firms around here have at least one enrolled agent on staff, which is really neat to see.
Jay, can you speak to the job opportunities?
Yeah, of course. So I started at a firm. I worked at a Big Four accounting firm, and Big Four accounting firm look favorably upon anyone's credential to become a manager. So that's one benefit of having EA. You are highly looked upon as a professional. Also, I currently work for a corporation, and when I interview people, I always say, okay, if someone is credentialed, they're more favorable for me to interview. And usually I select someone to interview based on, so we actually have 4 spots open in our company right now. And I've picked EAs as people to interview because I'm like, they've spent the time to get credentialed in their field of study. And also I have a practice, so you can also do a lot of practice work. And when you deal with auditors from the IRS, EA credentials, they respect it. Like, okay, I'm not dealing with just some random person. I'm dealing with someone who knows the tax laws. So it gives you a lot of reputation and a lot of opportunities in either a firm, a company, or even starting your own business.
Amber, since you're an EA candidate, what do you feel your opportunities are in getting the EA credential?
Yes. So overall, I feel like the biggest opportunity in my area with the EA credential is just tax preparation. Within a 30-mile radius, we have about 5 either enrolled agents or CPAs, and probably 10 tax preparers maybe. So there's kind of a lack in this area. People do travel or do virtual for their tax preparation. Alongside that, I do feel representation is another thing that I look forward to. Like I said, there's not a lot around here when it comes to that. So representation and then tax preparation.
Amber, you bring up a very interesting point. I will say in my practice is probably about 50% tax preparation, 10% representation, and 40% bookkeeping / accounting type work. Lori, do you have any feel for what type of work your firm does?
We're a little bit heavier on the tax preparation. We're probably about 75% tax preparation, although we're moving toward a more balance between that and the bookkeeping and payroll service. And then resolution is probably about 10 to 15% of what we do. But it's certainly one that we enjoy, and it is incredibly helpful both to us to be able to act for our clients and for our clients when we can call up and deal with the issues when they come up, whether they're big or small.
Jake, what's the makeup of your practice?
Yeah, so right now, resolution, I have maybe 5 to 10% and 90% tax prep, but my practice is more in the business side. So I have a lot of business clients, and I focus on, I probably have a 30-70 split, 30% business, 70% individuals.
I have to say that I have had two very big wins with the IRS in the past month. You know, I said COVID was over when I got my first IRS audit notice. But I've had a couple of very big wins, and you know, as part of the representation side, it's very satisfying to be able to resolve a client's tax issue very satisfactorily in the client's favor, and you know, it just makes you feel good when you're able to do that. Amber, have you had any uh, been able to assist in any tax resolution where you are right now?
I have kind of been, I guess, more of a messenger with a little bit of that, receiving emails and kind of keeping track of where we're at. And so it is very interesting, and you do get a little excited when your clients give you that good news or when you receive that good news. It's almost rewarding in our career.
It is. I got a letter just today on something that I'd been working on, and I can tell you that there was a lot of shouting and a lot of excitement when I got that letter. So yes, it is good. I
Could
see
be life,
some.
it could be life changing for some clients, so that's why we get excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can tell you back in the day, and to some extent, this still happens when people file paper returns, when they file 1099s, you know, by mail, you know, they paper file them. There's somebody at the IRS that does data entry on those things. And I like the fact that the IRS actually names problems, but so the issue was the 1099 was issued to my client for $9,000, and whoever data entered it for $90,000. So you can understand that that would immediately create a problem where the computer kicked out an underreporting type thing. And the IRS calls that a deviant decimal issue. So, you know, but it is very rewarding on the representation side to be able to resolve those things on behalf of your client. The makeup here, you know, of your panel here is probably about 10% representation. We've had other career panels where we've had people that have been more representation and less tax. So Lori, of the tax that you do, just for opportunities, are you, I heard Jay say it was about 30/70 for businesses and individuals. What's your makeup of your typical tax return for your firm?
So we're probably about 75 individual, 75% individual, 25% business. But like I said, that business portion has been growing a little bit every year.
And do you find that there is a big need on the business side for competent services?
I think that's where we see it the most is, you know, anybody can do a data entry on a simple W-2, but when it comes to what's deductible, am I deducting the right percentage of it? If there's something that needs a percentage, and where you really have to dive into the laws a little bit more, that's where people really ask for that help, and they want that help and need it.
Jay, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think the reason why like businesses are more complicated, there's so many different structures. So you want a professional that, like, so an EA will help you get there, because the tests and the learning, the CEs you take, you can help a client say, okay, should you be a partnership? Should you be a corporation? Should you be an S corp? It helps you determine what type of structure you should have, and also to advise them on expenses. What can you deduct? What can you not deduct? What's good record keeping? There's a lot of things that an EA who has experience can help you with.
Amber, what do you think about business versus personal tax returns?
So actually, interestingly, in our area, we have some clients that come to us for their business and then try to do their personal on their own to save money for the most part. So it is kind of interesting, and we definitely see that too. People trust us with their businesses and feel that their personal is more on their own. In reality, we're here for both sides. So it is kind of interesting. And then another thing that I want to add there, we do a lot of business startups and consulting with them. So it's interesting to see kind of how they start up and working with them there, kind of explaining what business structures we suggest, or kind of the pros and cons of each, and then again, what they can expense, what they can deduct, and then how they go on to run their business. And then if they do come to us for their return also, it's kind of nice just to see that life cycle there.
There's a question here from one of the participants, and I guess I don't know that preach is the right word, but when you become an enrolled agent, you are governed by Circular 230. And if you're going to prepare small business returns, you need to have a competence in being able to prepare those small business returns. And the person said their goal is to prepare small business returns. I would recommend that if you're going to start preparing small business returns, to hook up with somebody that has knowledge of that and gain the competency through working with somebody that has that knowledge. Quite frankly, and I'm sure that Lori and Jay and Amber can all share, I've seen returns come in from other preparers for specifically business returns where assets have not been depreciated correctly. Even though the business met the requirements, there was no balance sheet schedule. You know, I think business is the way to go, but hook up with somebody that has the competency to mentor you on doing that. Would you agree with that, Lori?
I absolutely would. There's so many ins and outs. And I think when it comes to businesses, you want to make sure you're competent, especially with that being where auditing is going to trend, or it sounds like that's where auditing is going to trend. They're really going to be looking at those businesses, and you don't want your name on a lot of things that have not been prepared right. So really making sure you know what you're doing. And I think it's great to have a mentor to go over those types of things, make sure that you're understanding, and ask questions when you have them. Absolutely.
Jay?
Yeah, I think businesses, there's also a steep learning curve, so it's not as easy as picking up an individual return. And also, you also have to be careful, because if you do make a mistake, the penalties are a lot bigger in businesses. The fines could be $5,000, $25,000. So you really have to be careful based on what type of business returns you're doing.
Amber, have you had any experience with business returns?
I've had a little, just more sitting alongside this tax season when I decided to become an EA, but it's definitely those new clients that are usually the ones that are a little scary if you don't know where they're coming from or are unsure of the competency of the previous preparer.
Okay. I'm looking to see if there are any more questions in the chat. I see something about a job fair, and I see that Aaron has said that NAEA is working on a job board right now and hope to have it launched this fall.
Yeah, I think a recommendation I would have is maybe reach out to your local chapter. If you could find your local chapter on the website, maybe if you connect with the president, they connect you with their network, and you can find a job in your area or in your state. That's probably the best way to look for opportunities if you're looking in the market for a job.
Absolutely. Somebody is asking if we've considered adding financial services to our practices. Matt, what do you mean by financial services? Are you talking about investments in financial planning, or are you talking about the accounting and payroll side of things?
I've always, until Matt responds, I've always made an effort not to do the investing side. I usually have a list of advisors who I refer out to. Just me personally, I don't want to be the one to tell someone they lost a lot of money, but I think there are companies that support EAs on those type of services if you have that background.
Lori?
Same thing. We partner with somebody that we can refer to. And we have a couple of people that we use. One of them actually works for us doing taxes, and he makes himself available. So if we have a client in our office who needs an immediate conversation, we can Zoom in potentially. And then we have another partner nearby that we also refer to, so that we're trying to make sure that we're meeting their needs, those financial needs, but our firm is not providing that.
And I agree with both Lori and Jay. I have several people in the area that do retirements and 529s and investments. And, you know, every client that comes in the door that's asking for those services, I give them the list of names. And I tell them that they need to interview these people because it's their money and they need to be comfortable with whoever they're dealing with. And if you go and interview, and it's just like a tax preparer, if you go and sit down with them and you're not comfortable with them, that's probably not the person that you should be dealing with. You should probably look for somebody else. So, you know, I agree. I don't ever anticipate adding those services. Amber, the firm that you're with, do they offer those services?
We do not. And like everybody else, we're happy to refer to people in the area. The owner of our firm is actually a CVA, so a certified valuation and analyst, and she offers that service along with tax preparation. We do find that goes kind of hand in hand at times in our area.
Ryan is asking a question, and you know, Ryan, I can't answer that question. So he's thinking due to the pandemic, he will miss the deadline for getting all 3 exams done in 3 years. And he says, do you know if the IRS will be understanding and accept all 3 exams, or will I need to do the 2 exams again? Thoughts? Ryan, what I would say is I hope you're a member of NAEA. I would probably refer this over to our government relations people and see what they could potentially do. Yes, Lori.
They have announced there is an extension, and I can't remember when the deadline is. That gives you, I think, an extra year to get all 3 of them in, as long as you started by a certain date. And I don't know exactly what those dates are, but because I've got a couple people studying for it, we know that there is a date that you can extend to as long as you were started by a certain date.
Jay, this one seems to be right up your alley. Does anyone have have ideas on how to work a full-time W-2 non-tax job and utilize the EA credential for a lucrative side hustle or self-employment opportunity?
Yeah, so that's how I started my practice. I've been working full time for a corporation, but I guess my corporation job, I'm a tax manager, so it's really in the same field. But I just take meetings from 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and then on weekends, I just keep myself very busy. So it's doable. It's just it takes a toll on your time. But if it's something that you want, and I'm at the point where in my career that I'm actually leaving my job this year and do my practice full time. So it could be the best of both worlds where you have a salary and you have time to build out the clientele that you want, right? So you could go acquire a practice, but if you build a practice, you have the opportunity to say, you could be picky. You could say, I want this client, I don't want this client. And that's why I did it as a side gig to a full-time practice. So I actually like all my clients right now. I don't really dislike any of them.
You know, that's a really good point. You know, for Lori and I, you know, we have some well, I can't speak for Lori, but over the 25 years that I've been in business, I have taken on some clients that, you know, initially in those early years, I took on anybody and everybody because I needed to make my paycheck. And I'm at the point now where, you know, I'm getting rid of some of those people because they're hard to deal with. They don't want to follow the rules and they give me a hard time. And, you know, they give me the information for the business on September 12th with a September 15th deadline. And I'm to the point where, you know, I'm going to start getting rid of those people because I don't want to deal with them anymore. So I can't speak for Lori, but I'm going to start to divest some of those people.
Well, for me, I think because I have multiple employees doing taxes during tax season and I'm not out there by myself, I know we have some people who certainly would not work well with me, but they work great with somebody else in the firm. And so that's a plus. But with that said, we've also Dear John some folks who just don't want to follow the rules, and you just send them you know, we're not going to work with you. We can't work with you. Let's divest. So, yeah.
And whether it's tax or representation, you got to remember that you're signing your name on the bottom line, and you know, you're signing whatever you're doing is complete and accurate. And if you've got clients that don't want to work for you, maybe they really should go someplace else.
Yeah, it's also a risk, right? You worked really hard to earn your credential. You don't want to lose it on doing fraudulent returns, and especially they're fraudulent, right? You're not doing anything fraudulent, so you don't want to take that risk, especially if you have a feeling in your stomach that's not right. You tell them, please go somewhere else.
Yep, absolutely.
I worked too hard to earn my credential. Too many hours of studying.
Yes, absolutely. I see that Aaron has posted the extension on the IRS FAQ for Ryan, who was looking for that information. And I also believe that somebody else was looking for that. One of the questions is how do you all set yourselves apart from a tax attorney and or a CPA when it comes to client attraction or retention? Lori, do you want to start with that?
Sure. I think, you know, we have a lot of clients who come in and they say, you're my CPA. And it's like, no, we're an enrolled agent. And I think to just point out where the differences are, whether they're good or bad, we don't say, but the fact that we have a nationwide credential, I can represent anybody in any state, which is fantastic as an enrolled agent. And I wouldn't have that opportunity as CPA or an attorney because of the state licensing from that perspective. I think for me personally, also, there's a bit of a mindset difference. And I think and this is my personal opinion, that enrolled agents have a focus of let me help my clients. And I feel like other credentials sometimes have how can I make money off of this other person's problem as the primary focus. And while you want to do both, I think the clients oftentimes can pick up on the fact that we're here to help you, and that's our primary goal, as compared to let me profit off of you as best I can. So I think that's where I would start with it.
Amber?
I guess where we try to set ourselves apart is we have the owner of our firm who's the CPA. We do have a CPA on our staff too, and then an EA also. So we just try to offer such a variety of services, and then also work with clients across the United States too. We really encourage our virtual services and doing everything online. So those are really the places where we try to be ahead there.
Jay?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between EAs, CPAs, and attorneys is that CPAs and attorneys will also be doing like audits. CPAs will be doing audits. Lawyers or attorneys will be doing legal work. They're not really focused on tax all the time. I always tell my clients, look, I do tax. I don't do anything else. I focus on tax, and then I think I have a different background than most. I actually have a tax law degree, so I could think like an attorney if I needed to.
I agree with all of you, and I agree with Lori that, we're definitely here to help. I know every time somebody walks into my office and says, you're my CPA, I always correct them. I always say, no, I'm an enrolled agent. I'm licensed by the federal government. I am not licensed by the state. And I said, that's, the CPAs are licensed by the state. And unless there's reciprocal agreements, they can only work in the state in which they're licensed. And I said, furthermore, the only thing that I really cannot do is audit or certify financial statements. Nor do I want to be doing that. And in my experience and in my conversations with a lot of CPAs, for pure liability reasons, they're doing less and less of that as well. So the gap between an enrolled agent and a CPA is certainly narrowing when it comes to that. But I always explain it, and of course, in my office, which you're not seeing my office right now because it's, I'm still working on tax returns. I do have, I have my EA mug, I have my EA coaster, and I have other EA information all around so that, they clearly know that I'm an enrolled agent. And I also have my enrolled agent certificate hanging on the wall. So, I make it a point to educate. And I will tell you, I remember a time in Baltimore, Maryland, where Lori and I were on a shuttle van going back to the airport. And the people that got in with us asked what we did. And they had a whole busload of enrolled agents that were more than happy to explain what an enrolled agent is. So, you just educate one person at a time.
Yeah, I keep that as my elevator speech a little bit. You get in an elevator and somebody's like, hey, what do you do? What conference are you here for if you're at a hotel? And, you know, nobody, generally in that instance, people don't know what an enrolled agent is, just like on the bus there in Baltimore. And I'm like, hey, I help taxpayers deal with the IRS one person at a time, and people can relate to that. So finding that common ground where they're like, oh yeah, you're a helper for the taxpayer. They like that.
There's a question here that says, does NAEA ever plan on doing any outreach to educate the public about what an enrolled agent is? Well, I can't speak for NAEA itself. However, NAEA is us. We, the members, are NAEA, and we need to advocate for ourselves. And we need to get out there. Will NAEA at times assist us in what we're doing? Absolutely. What Super Bowl was it that they had an airplane go over with the enrolled agent credential and information? So there are times when NAEA has assisted an affiliate in getting the word out there, but it's the Super Bowl in Arizona, that's right. So we, the members, we need to be a grassroots and really advocate for ourselves. Would you, Jay, what do you think?
I think I've seen a lot of ads over time. So I think NAEA does it, just not probably as much as other professions. But I think its members speak for itself.
Amber, since you've become a member, have you seen these types of things?
I have. Actually, the first time I told anybody I passed my first exam, they asked what an EA was. Is that the same thing as a CPA? No, it's not. And so I think just advocating, we have to advocate for ourselves. And so us being the members of NAEA, that's the best thing that we can do. I will also add, I know that NAEA has some resources, I think, on the website somewhere already, typed publications, and maybe some more that you guys could touch on about the difference of an EA and a CPA and just some other things that could help in this situation.
Now, I know that Lori is actually a very good advocate for the EA profession.
I mean, we've done, I think our firm, we did a prepped class here where we had 18 people at one time studying within our firm for the enrolled agent exam. A lot of them have passed now, but when I think so, of course, I'm all about us promoting ourselves. I think our affiliates have a lot of great campaigns. And I can say over the time that I've been with NAEA, the staff and the board are always looking for a good campaign that's going to be effective at sharing that message. I've seen mailings. I remember the Super Bowl, that was the first thing I thought of. There's been a lot of, different NPR things that went out in the past. And I think one of the other really big things that NAEA does to help promote it is from a governmental level. We've had how many fly-ins where we go to Capitol Hill as enrolled agents and talk with our government elected officials. And I know early on when we started doing that with NAEA, people did not know what an enrolled agent was. And, I know because of pandemic, things have changed a little bit, but the last time I was on Capitol Hill, I think just about everybody that I talked to knew what an enrolled agent was. So I think there definitely is a push by NAEA to have that public eye, but I completely agree that it boils down to the individual, and you are the person who can make that difference in your sphere of influence, whatever your community is or your company. That's where people see, is this something that I want to pursue? Is this a good thing? It's by the image that you as an enrolled agent put out there, or I as an enrolled agent put out there.
I also know that Lori was heavily involved with Educating America, which, would you like to talk about that program and how that program was getting the enrolled agent credential out there?
So, and we started a little bit of that in Indiana. I know it was starting at the same time in other places, but we were doing outreach to colleges and especially two-year schools to promote the enrolled agent licensing. And I know in Indiana right now we have Ivy Tech runs a CPREP course where the students can learn about each part through some of their classes. I know Purdue Northwest has been running a CPREP course with an NAEA member as the professor, and he's been running that for 3 or 4 years, and it's been very successful there. So Educating America is very much about, let's get the word out there at that education level, not so much at somebody who's already in another career, but at that level where somebody's starting to say, what am I going to do? Does this seem like a good fit for me? So it sounds like maybe about where Amber is in her career.
Amber?
Yes, yes. So that's why it was interesting to me when someone asked what an EA was, especially kind of in our rural area. I feel like it is up to the individual too. So I do find it interesting, kind of the service that you guys have revolving around EAs and NAEA. So it's interesting to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, as being, I'm part of the NAEA Education Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It is a total separate entity from NAEA. We solicit donations. We have a couple of corporate sponsors that provide scholarships to us. We again solicit donations so that we can provide scholarships to EA candidates. We have several companies that are actually providing EA scholarships to the foundation. And the other thing that we're doing is we are providing scholarships for Prometrics testing reimbursement fees. And we've got a community outreach program going where Bill Nemus, who is now the chair of the foundation, went to the TACTI conference, which is the 2-year college accounting professors. So we have a list of colleges that have attended that, and we're going to be reaching out to them and the business partners for that to, try to develop programs, just the way Educating America was, and really try to make inroads into colleges and universities that way. Because I do think the EA credential provides a good alternative where you can get that credential, go into the workforce, and actually start making money with it very quickly. So the Education Foundation currently has scholarships available. We have scholarship applications open. I think it goes through October 10th. And you can go to naea-ef.org. That is the website for the Education Foundation, and click on the scholarships tab, and you can get a link for scholarship applications for either the enrolled agent exam or the Prometrics testing fees. It's a really good program if you're interested in becoming an enrolled agent. So somebody has a question. With the 80 billion being invested in the IRS over the next decade, looking in your crystal ball, what skills should a new EA be focusing on developing to help taxpayers as the IRS beefs up its resources to do more audits? How is your firm preparing for this? Jay, we'll start with you on this one. Jay, you're muted.
I guess how I'm preparing is just making sure that all the returns that are submitted are done properly. I don't rush any returns. I make sure that everything is done right. What I normally do is I'll prepare it. I'll take like couple hours, then come back to it with fresh eyes and just take a look to make sure there's no errors. I think the best bet to avoid it is just do an accurate return every time to the best of your ability.
Lori?
I think I totally agree, Jay. That's the number one thing that we want to do is that our returns are done right. But I think our firm finds that a lot of the things that we're representing for audits or reconsideration are returns that we did not prepare. And so I think for me, NTPI, having that understanding of how is an audit going to work? How is a reconsideration going to work? How is an appeal going to work? How does collections work? Knowing how all of those pieces work, and then learning those resources that we can use those to the taxpayer's benefit in when we get into that situation, I think is the best thing. So for us, it's making sure that we stay current on tax law, number one, and number two, keep our training really firm so that when we're doing an audit, we know exactly what to expect, how it's going to run, and what we can best do to serve the client.
Amber, have you been involved in any of this?
I have not really. So that is why I really enjoyed what Lori said and hearing about NTPI. I actually clicked on the link. That's something I need to probably look into a little bit more just to be able to understand audits and reconsiderations and how that process actually works. But I will say one thing that our firm has done and then will continue to do throughout the IRS hiring more agents is really prepare returns correctly and ensure that, put an extra set of eyes on those returns, but also put confidence into our clients. When they receive a letter, we don't want them to be scared themselves. We want them to understand we are here to help represent them and help them through the process.
It is 4:54. Jay, I'm going to start with you. Closing thoughts to our audience.
Yeah, so if I ever have to look back, I'd say that becoming an EA is awesome. I'm very proud to be an EA. I would say that if you have the time to study for it and if you're going to go into area taxation, you should definitely be credentialed and really consider EA. If you guys have any questions or just want to bounce off anything, I'm happy to make myself available for a call or just if you have any questions or concerns. I'm sure the other panelists would feel the same, but I feel proud to be an EA, and I hope more people become it because it really is awesome. And the networking is great. The people that I've met who are also EAs are awesome.
Lori, your closing thoughts?
I would just say I love hearing what Jay said because my Leadership Academy project was called Proud, and it was about being proud of the enrolled agent licensure. And I think my thoughts are, if you are wanting to be a tax pro or a tax preparer, a tax planner with your clients, becoming an enrolled agent is the number one step you can take to, number one, give them the confidence in your abilities that Amber talked about. Number two, have the confidence for yourself in your own abilities, because every enrolled agent is a tax law expert. So I think that's the number one thing you can do to, whether you're working for yourself or for a firm, to really set yourself up for great success.
Amber, what are your thoughts?
I am really looking forward to becoming an EA. I look forward to the flexibility that the career offers. Many of you talk about your side jobs or the other opportunities and careers that you do alongside being an EA. So I really look forward to just all the opportunity. I hope that someday life can slow down and enjoy a little bit more with that flexibility. I will also say the opportunity is something that I look forward to. I've really enjoyed hearing the other panelists' experiences, either with NAEA or just as an EA. I hope to join some of these conferences and meet you guys all in person someday too. So the other thing, as I become an EA, I utilized NAEA for the first part of Surgent, and that really Surgent's a practice software that I've used to practice for the exams. So I was kind of, I guess, didn't know where to start when I did decide that I wanted to pursue the EA route. I knew that I needed to get a P10. I knew I needed to schedule a test. But as far as studying materials, I knew I could read publications. I could read off the IRS website all day long, but that's not necessarily what I wanted to do. So I really did enjoy having the opportunities from NAEA and the Education Foundation to apply for those scholarships, to utilize that first part of Surgent that's available to members. So if you're looking forward to becoming an EA, definitely look into the resources available. And like Jay said, if you have any questions or wonder what that process is like, feel free to reach out.
And on a closing note, I'd just like to say I have been a member of NAEA since 2010. I am a sole practitioner in my firm, so it is absolutely wonderful to go to these conferences and meet these other people and network. And I know that if I have a tax return with an Indiana question, I can call Lori Carpenter up on the phone and she will take my phone call and she will help me and answer the question. Just like I know if I have a New York City question, I can call Jay because New York City is a tax entity unto itself, and he will also answer my questions. And now I've made a new friend of Amber who has Kansas and Nebraska. So I will be able to call her should I have any questions, just like any of you should be able to call me with any upstate New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire questions, and even the state of Maine. So it's really, NAEA has really been a great community. I've grown a lot as a tax practitioner for being a member of that community. And I look forward to the next several years within this community. Erin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just close us out. Well, I'd like to thank all of our panelists and all of our attendees for their participation. I did go ahead and put some links in the chat for some of the things that our panelists have talked about. So our associate membership, where you get free access to Surgent Part 1 C-Prep exam, as well as discounts on Part 2 and 3. And then I put the link to our scholarships. So like Amber here received some of our scholarships in order to take those EAC prep classes and then take the exam. So I encourage anyone who is on this call who is looking to get your EA to go check those links out and check out the resources that NAEA can provide. As a member, you also get access to a number of our free partner webinars, which we have some Surgent ones coming up. So I'll just make a quick plug for them. We're having a Pass the Entire EA Exam in Less Than a Year webinar happening in about 2 weeks on October 11th. And so if you're considering and becoming an EA, now is a great time. You can become an associate member, get access to Surgent, and then find out a plan on how to pass that from Surgent. So thank you all for your participation today. This concludes today's program. We have recorded it, so we will be posting it on YouTube in the next day or two. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm glad to see all of you.
Have a good day, everyone.